All right. Hello, 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 everyone. I am Rosalind Brown of Your Wealth Guidance, where we provide tools so you can live life on your own terms. We all want to reach some point of financial independence. So if you woke up this morning and you was like, I ain't feel like going to work, you can decide I ain't gonna go to work. If you decide to take some time off, if you're in a situation and you're trying to figure out how do I balance motherhood or how do I balance being the best child possible, because if you're like me, your parents are getting a little bit older and you want to have that freedom. A lot of times that freedom comes through real estate. And so there's so many ways that you can be a real estate investor, but there's a lot of fundamentals that people just miss. And so I've been a part of the real estate journey. And so I've heard a lot of the stories. So I'm really happy that we're going to get into kind of the bones of things. So if you're starting your journey, you're going to start on the right path. Today, we have Calvin Cannon Jr. He is a real estate investor with 32 plus years of experience in various strategies of real estate, from full rehabs, new construction, turnkey rentals, to multifamily units. Calvin has a passion not only doing real estate daily, but also teaching in real estate, which is why he created the Cash Flow Roadmap community. So you definitely be sure to look that up to help inspiring investors learn about real estate and learn how to cash flow, because at the end of the day, it's about the money. So I want to start, and I mean, 32 years is a long time. I'm sure some folks tuning in, they're like, I ain't even 32 years old. And so how did you get into real estate? Like, how did you get started? What was the why behind, I'm gonna go ahead and do this?
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, thank you, Rosalind, for having me on your show. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here. And so for me, just like any other young adult at a very young age, I had to get out of my parents' house. I couldn't deal with the discipline. I couldn't deal with not wanting to be my own man. So I started a college, Temple University, which is in Philadelphia. I was going to Temple, and I stumbled across of trying to live on campus, which was totally expensive. My parents couldn't afford that. So what I did was I was always filling out for grants. I was always filling out for stipend money. So my first year in college, most college students get something called a stipend check, right? It'll take care of your room and board, and it'll also take care of your food. So for me, I put my paperwork in late, right? Just your typical, young adult, not really doing what they're supposed to do, right? And putting the paperwork in on time. So I put my paperwork in late. So at the end of the first semester, I got a check for $5,000. So in my mind, as a young adult, I'm 17 years old, right? I made it, right? I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna use this money and I'm going to get out of my parents' house. So I bought my first duplex for $5,000 at 32nd and Cecil B. Moore in Philadelphia. And I moved out of the day that I signed my paperwork, I grabbed the duffel bag, I put as many clothes as I could, and I moved out of my parents' house. So that was my first experience with getting a property. I didn't know anything about real estate. I didn't know nothing about the paperwork. I didn't even know what I was signing. All I knew is that I got this stipend check that cleared in 7 days, and I wanted to get out of my parents' house. So that duplex that I got was my very first property. Bought it for $5,000. It was a hole in the wall. My front doors didn't lock properly. My windows was half open. I had all types of rodents and side of the place, but I didn't care, right?
You was living a dream.
I was living my dream. I literally put a sofa in front of the front door to keep it to try to keep the door locked. So that's the first property I had. Finished my next year in college. And then I'll call this gentleman. He's an entrepreneur. He was a farmer. He ran his own pharmaceutical company as an entrepreneur, and he's seen me coming in and out of the property. And he approached me and said, "Hey, I'm interested in buying that property." So now at this point, I'm thinking like, "You want to buy this property? Like, it's a hole in the wall." He was like, "I'll give you $60,000 for it." So now the light bulbs is ringing. I'm like, $60,000? Now we're talking about in the 90s, I ain't tell my age, but 1991, right? So he
$5,000 investment. Yeah.
I put in 5. He offered me $60,000. So I'm thinking, I'm like, yes, not knowing anything else. I wanted the money. He said, give me about 2 weeks. I signed more documents that I had no idea what I was signing. All I knew that I was selling this property for $60,000. That was my first property and also my first lesson in real estate. My first lesson. Bought it for 5, sold it for 60. This guy came to a office, which I know now is a settlement table, and he had a duffel bag full of money. I took that duffel bag, I ran to my parents' house, and I told my mom to quit her job. We made it. She immediately took me to the police station on Broad and Stanton Avenue. I think it was like the 35th district, and turned me in and said, I don't know where my son got this money from. However, we do not do things in my house, and I need you to interview him and investigate him. I brought the paperwork from the title company. They took me back to the property. We talked to the entrepreneur gentleman. He showed his paperwork. He looked at my mom and said, your son sold real estate. This is a legitimate deal. My mom, swore me down from here to heaven. I took that money, I bought some more properties, and I moved forward. Now, why I said this is my first lesson is because today that particular property is worth over $550,000. So had I had a mentor, coach, or somebody to tell me, young man, hold on to this, right? And not just chasing money, I would have gotten to real estate faster, better, with less lessons that I had to take to get to the next level. So once I got bit with that bug, I just started buying more real estate, and my real estate career just took off from that point. So that was my first piece of property and my first lesson.
I love that, because I was actually talking to someone earlier, and if you are doing it alone, and so, when you don't have a mentor and you just figuring it out, and sometimes you fall into it. So in your situation, you're like, I'm trying to get out of the house. I got this replat, like, hey, I'm gonna move how I gotta move. And sometimes you're learning along the way, and you're getting scratched up and bruised up. But what are some of like the foundational things that you're like, okay, I wish I would have known that in the beginning, opposed to 5 years, 10 years later?
Yeah. So one of the things that I realize is that, sometimes we think we know something or we know about something and we really don't. I wish that before I did that transaction, instead of me going to college to be a criminal justice attorney, I wish I would have went to college to be a business, to try to be a business profession, right? So that way I would have got the business aspect. Immediately when I did that deal, I went and got my real estate license immediately, because I didn't even know what I signed. So I would say that if I would have understood what I was signing, I probably could have brokered the deal a little bit better than what I did. I would have been more educated on what's happening with real estate. Like, this guy literally stole it. Not, he didn't steal it from me, because he offered to me. I accepted it. But my ignorance of not having the information about real estate, I didn't know that area was being gentrified. I didn't know that in the next couple of years that profit was going to be 2, 3, 4 times. That's because I didn't have the information. So I would say a lot of people want to get into real estate and they want to move so fast, but you got to move correct. You have to find somebody who's done it, who's doing it, and put yourself in position to get the information from them, so you make the least amount of lessons. That way you can scale a little bit faster and correct. So for me, the education portion, I didn't have the education. I didn't know who to ask. All I knew is I needed to get out of my parents' house. So if I had to start all over again, I would say yes. I'm not saying you have to be a licensed real estate agent to do real estate, but I would recommend to study real estate so you can understand the verbiage, you can understand how to negotiate the strategies, and you can understand what people are saying to you in rooms when you're transitioning money back and forth. So education is definitely important for real estate. Definitely important.
And you made a good point, because you kind of fell into your first property, and it was more so you looking at the price tag like, boom, this is what I can afford.
Yep.
And so if you are not in that situation of, I got a check in hand, I'm trying to find a property to match it,
Yep.
How do people find out, okay, what makes sense? What is a good opportunity for me? What is a great house for me to invest in? What are going to be some of the ways that they know that this neighborhood is being gentrified? So I need to deal with the rougher neighborhood for a couple of years to get that return.
Yeah. So that's definitely a great question. One of the things that I learned in my journey was, one, you want to take advantage of all the first time home owner programs, FHA, NACA, VA loans, conventional loans. You want to take advantage of everything that you can take advantage in your personal name. The key thing that I think that people need to understand is that your first property shouldn't be the house that you want. It should be the house that you need. Right. A lot of times we think about, 3-bedroom house, white picket fence, house on the hill. This is my first property. I wanted to be a mansion. I thought like that too. But coming out, just getting your first property, you need to buy what you need. And what you need is to house hack. So if the federal government is going to give me 3.5% down on a house I can use for 1 family up to 4 families, well, I'm going to take advantage of that, because I can live there for 1 year. I can rent out the 3 other units. And after that first year, I can rent out this whole entire building now and then go buy the property that I want. So now the property that I needed is now financially taking care of the property that I wanted. And now is making things a little bit easier for me because now I'm producing residual cash flow from this particular property that's now going to purchase and buy my next property. So I always say, don't buy the house that you want, buy the house that you need. And the house that you need is something that's going to produce income the same time that you can live at that particular property as your first property, as your first property.
And it's a short sacrifice because definitely if you're playing the long game, I know years ago it was big. Everybody was making money flipping properties and all this, and it was like the quick money. But if you plan to be in it, 32 years like you,
Yeah,
very different thought process. Now,
definitely.
you talked about buying in your personal name, but we also talked, I know before we came on tonight, we talked about the whole concept of owning nothing and controlling everything. And then people are like, what do you mean? Like, I want to own all the property. What does that mean? And what is the benefit behind it?
Yeah. So when you place properties in your personal name, you open yourself up to liability. Now, a lot of people say, you know what, I don't want to be this real estate guru. And that's totally fine. However, you also have a last name to protect. So own nothing but control everything simply means that you may start off with the property in your name, maybe one, maybe two, but at that point, you want to start buying properties inside of an LLC. So now you're protecting your asset with a limited liability company. Now, my very first property, I did it wrong, right? So I bought the $5,000 property, I sold it. That to me was a flip, right? It was almost like a wholesale flip. But then the property that I acquired from my personal residence was in my personal name. As I started learning and building myself up in real estate, I started learning how to build LLCs, how to protect my assets by building the LLCs the proper way, building holding companies, and one holding company is holding another LLC, right? And then that holding company is owned by a trust, and we'll definitely get into that as well. And when I realized that, I sold my personal property to my LLC. So now I took myself off of the deed and the title of the property because now I don't own anything. There's no assets in my name. So if anything ever happened to me, or I was in a car accident and my car, if it was in my personal name, you can't come after my personal assets because my Calvin Cannon doesn't own anything. It's my LLCs that own it. So you want to protect everything that you have inside of an LLC. And one of the great points is once I started learning that and I put my property in the LLC, I, as a personal person, can now be a tenant of the LLC and pay my company rent. And that's how you protect yourself.
See, I love that. That's like the thing that most people aren't talking about in terms of how to purchase. But I think one of the bigger things is some people are afraid of being a landlord. And
Yes.
so what do you say to people that are like, I don't want nobody calling me at midnight saying their toilet won't flush or, the basement flooded or whatever it is. What do you say to those people that are like, I want to invest in real estate, but I don't know if I want to be that landlord that, you're getting all the calls and all the messages and everyone hates you and you got to ride by and pick up the rent check, those kind of things.
Yeah, so that's also a great question. So a lot of people get so misled about real estate, right? Everybody thinks that, hey, I'm gonna get into real estate, I gotta rent out properties. You don't. There are multiple different strategies on how to be successful in real estate. You don't have to be a landlord, right? You don't even got to fix up a property. You can actually find a property, wholesale the deal to somebody else. You can constantly just fix. I'm sorry. You can constantly buy them. You can constantly sell them without fixing them. You can buy them. You can fix them up and sell them, right? Or you can also do JV deals with people where you do not have to hold the property and keep it as a landlord rental property. So some people don't like that. I don't want to deal with that. That's great. So just keep flipping properties, right? One of the theories that I do with real estate and one of my methods and keys that I've been doing to be successful is I buy, flip, hold until my cash flow holds supersede my flips. That's my system. So if I'm buying something and I flip it, I'm going to make the residual cash flow off of that active income by flipping. Now I can stay right there forever. But then now I got to think about Uncle Sam, the person we never met ever in our life, right? So now they're taxing me 30, 30, 40% of capital gain tax. How am I tax sheltering that money? So now I got to hold a couple properties. So now I can use the rental properties to eat up some of that, or I can also use the revenue that I'm making off of that and go buy something else. So sometimes we say, hey, I want to do this part of real estate, but we don't understand the long term of, are you filing your taxes properly? When you make that $50,000, $60,000 per property that you're selling, what are you doing with the money? Capital gain taxes is serious, right? So you got to make sure you understand it. If not, you got to understand a great process of real estate to keep the money coming in and keep the money going out. So if you don't want to be a landlord, there are different strategies that you can do. You just have to make sure that you understand the strategy that you're getting into and it doesn't put you in a financial burden.
Now, you mentioned a couple of words I want us to go back and define. You mentioned wholesaling, and
Yes,
I'm sure like half folks are like, I know exactly what that is. And some folks are like, I don't know what that is.
definitely.
So I want you to explain to the team what that means, but also the whole concept of like JVing a deal. So
Definitely.
if you have heard this concept for the first time, you're
Yeah.
gonna walk away and like, okay, now I know what he's talking about.
Yeah. So wholesale deal is exactly what it sounds like. Is you being a middleman, right? You're taking a property from a seller and you're finding a buyer, and then you're bringing those two people together. So more simpler is the seller is person A, the buyer is person B. You're that slash in the middle that's combining the A and the B together. That's called a wholesaler. So your job is to either find a seller and then you're going to find the end buyer. That's all wholesaling is. Wholesaling is one of the most popular strategies that you can use in real estate that doesn't cost you a dime. So when people say, "Oh, you can do real estate and it doesn't cost you any money at all," or "You can do real estate with no money out of your pocket," well, some of that is not actually true. But when it comes to wholesaling, you can find a seller, right? Tell a seller, "Hey, I'm gonna buy your property in 30, 60 days." You find an end buyer, an investor, somebody like myself. "Hey, Calvin, listen, I got this property. I need you to close out on it in 30 days." Where did you
Mhm.
spend money? You didn't spend any money. So let's say seller, you go into contract and say, "Hey, I want to buy your property for 50,000. Calvin, I got a property that I want to sell to you for 65,000. Now, the seller is going to get their 50, the wholesaler gets the 15 after I pay the 65. So now the wholesaler just made $15,000 and never ever took any money out of their pocket. So if you're new in real estate or you're trying to just test the waters with real estate and you don't really want to risk any financial money that you have, always start off with wholesaling. Try to find that deal, find the buyer, and you make your money in the middle. And then you can figure out, hey, do I like this process? I made some money. Do I like this process? So that's what a wholesaler is. It's almost like a realtor, but you don't have to go through all the paperwork and documentations of having a broker and doing different things like that. You're just the middle person. You're the connector. A wholesaler is nothing but a connector. I'm connecting A, seller, to buyer B, and I'm the glue in the middle. Give me my 15,000 and everybody's happy.
Now, are there any downsides to being a wholesaler? Like, can you be stuck with this house and they like, hey, I still need my 50, even if you didn't get it from out in the streets? Are there any risks to it that people should be aware of?
It's always a risk in real estate, right? So one of the biggest risks as being a wholesaler, that it also adds to any part of real estate, is being transparent and having integrity. You cannot tell seller A, hey, I'm going to buy your property in 60 days. What if you don't find a buyer in 60 days? What if you have a buyer and the buyer backs out? Now what do you do? So now you got to go back to the seller and say, hey, either I need more time or I changed my mind. So on paperwork, you just want to be very transparent. Me, when I wholesale a deal for myself or for my company, I'm telling the seller, hey, I am a wholesaler. I'm either going to find somebody to buy your property, or if I like the property, I may buy it myself. But I'm not promising anything. I'm not promising anything. You want to sell your property for 50,000? I'm gonna try to get it sold for a little bit over 50 for the hard work and equity, sweat equity that I have to put in. If you're okay with that, I'm okay with that. Then we sign off. You have a lot of people that do wholesaling or quote unquote say they're wholesalers, but they're not transparent with the sellers. They're making the seller believe that they are the actual buyer. So what happens is that the seller in their mind think that you're the one that's buying this property. We get to the settlement table. Now here's somebody else, and now this person is paying more money, and you're making money off of my property. Sellers have a problem with that. So yes,
Mhm.
wholesaling can be very, very tricky if you're not honest and you're not moving in with integrity. Can you be stuck with the property? Yes, if you promise to told that person, "Hey, I'm about his property." Now, of course, the person probably don't have a real estate attorney that's going to hold you to that, but it's your name, is the integrity of it. So you tied this person's property up, then you backed away from the deal. That person's going to have a bad impression on what real estate is, right? So even if a home buyer is looking to sell their property through a wholesaler, read the contract. Understand what you're signing. Is it an agreement to sell or is it an assignment contract? So understand what you're signing to make sure that you're locked in properly, and never, ever, ever sign anything that you don't understand. So yes, wholesaling can be a tricky thing. You can, it's never a thing where you gotta buy this property, because I've seen deals where no wholesaler wasn't involved at all, and it was a real estate agent, two realtors, and the buyer lost the loan. So the buyer wasn't forced to buy the house; they lost the
Yeah,
loan. So
they just can't. Yeah.
it was a contingency. So it's the same thing with wholesaling as well.
I think that's a good point. And you mentioned the JV concept. So explain to
Yep.
us, like, what is that concept? What does that mean in terms of the real estate atmosphere?
Absolutely. So another strategy for new investors that are just coming out is that if you're not an investor that's savvy and you're still trying to learn real estate, the best thing you can do is either wholesaling or you do a JV deal, right? Real estate consists of three things to be successful. You either got to have the money, the credit, or the knowledge. So if you say, "Hey, I don't have the money to do this," then you find somebody that has the money. That's your JV partner. You say, "Hey, I don't have the credit to do this, but I got the money." Okay, then you find somebody with the credit. That's your JV partner. "Hey, I got the money and the credit, but I don't have the knowledge." You find somebody with the knowledge, and now that's your JV partner. Typically, what JV deals is that you guys come to some type of agreement. "Hey, we're going to buy property A. We're going to fix it up, and then we're going to flip this property A and split this type of profit." Now, I always tell people when you do JV deals, understand what you're getting into, right? I never advise anybody to do a JV deal for a property that they're going to hold. And a property they're going to hold means that, hey, we might be becoming landlords together. So just imagine, hey, me, myself, hey, Roslyn, we're going to go out here, we're going to buy this 10-unit apartment building. You're like, "All right, Calvin, that sounds great," right? So we go in as a JV deal, we buy the apartment building. So now Calvin and Roslyn, we have this deal that we got this 10-unit apartment building, and we're splitting the rents, the cash flows coming in every month. Now all of a sudden, Calvin says, "You know what, Roslyn, I'm gonna be getting married next year. So instead of just me being on the deal, I want to bring my wife on the deal." Or, "Roslyn, you know what? I don't want to do real estate no more. So I'm gonna let my son, come in my place for the deal, right?" Or Roslyn might say, "You know what? I'm done with this. Cash me out." So I always tell people, if you're going to do a JV deal, always do a JV deal where you're going to immediately sell the property. You don't want to be married to a JV deal. It's a temporary situation. I came with something, you came with something. We sold the property for a profit that we both can benefit from in the long haul. Now, JV deals are probably one of the lucrative deals that you can do without taking the most risk, because you both have risk that you're putting inside of this. So if you don't have a lot of cash flow, you don't have a lot of money to put into the deal, you're not really sure of which direction you want to go in with real estate, you can start off with wholesaling if you want to be on your own to build your capital. You can have a JV partner where you can start off and you don't have to invest but so much where you're putting a lot of risk out there, right? So now you can start figuring out, hey, what direction do I really want to do in real estate? So JV stands for joint venture. That's what JV means, a joint venture. That's a partnership. But remember, never marry a JV. It's a temporary situation.
You got to have an exit date when we're done with this. This relationship is going to be over at
That's right.
some point.
That's right.
That's a good concept and a good thing to know. It's one of those, like, this is small, but it makes a big difference. And so you told us a couple of ways to get into real estate. What are some other ways? I mean, most people only know, like, buy a house, rent a house. What are some other ways to be a real estate investor? So somebody about to go be a wholesaler, somebody's going to search out somebody to do this temporary JV deal with. And then what
Mhm.
are some other things that people can do to get into real estate?
Absolutely. Believe it or not, you have a lot of people that's in real estate that never ever seen a property. They're just the financial backer of somebody else. They're the silent partner of an investor, right? So they're in real estate, but they don't touch any properties. They don't go to no Home Depots. They don't deal with no contractors. They don't deal with no banks. They are the silent partner. So somebody might say, "Hey, you know what? You have a real estate journey. That's your passion. So I'm going to back up your passion by being your private investor and allow you to buy real estate with my funds, and you're going to give me money back from the money that I'm going to give you. So there's a return on your investment, an ROI. You can still get into real estate that way. You can also get into real estate by not getting actually into the brick and mortars. You can actually sell notes. And what a note is, hey, I'm going to buy this mortgage note. And instead of me fixing up properties, I'm going to sell notes to other investors that want to buy the notes. I can buy notes from a bank, a mortgage company, right? And I can say to them, hey, listen, I'm going to buy, this $30,000 note balance for pennies on the dollar, and then I'll resell the mortgage. Or I'll resell that note. When people hear things like foreclosures and somebody, selling their property at a foreclosure sale, that's exactly what that is. So you can essentially get into real estate without even touching any pieces of real estate. Nothing at all. Nothing at all. All you can do is just you can sell notes. You can be a private investor of real estate. You can be somebody that just connect people. You could just be that connector. Hey, listen, you buy over here. I got an investor here. I got a person over there. I'm gonna bring y'all two together. Just pay my invoice. And you never step foot in.
Everybody knows somebody.
Everybody knows. I got
knowledge has a value, regardless of what industry you're in. Knowledge has a value. So that's a really good point to make too. You've talked a lot about, this person, this person, this person. And so it really means you have to have some type of team, regardless of it's, how do I find these people to connect? How do I find these people to do the contracting? How do I find this JV or lender or whomever? So who are some of the foundational people that you need to have on your team? And how do you find these people? I know we were talking about contractors earlier, but how do you find the perfect team and evaluate who makes sense to be on your team?
Yeah. So one thing I always say all the time is that I'm always looking for more team members, right? So, but the starting 5 or the starting 8 members that you need on your team, one, I don't care what you're doing in real estate or what type of real estate you want to do, you need a real estate attorney. Just people might say, oh, but I don't have any properties. You need a real estate attorney because you need somebody that can read documents. You need somebody that can tell you, hey, you're getting in way too over your head, or if something pops up. So you need somebody you can rely on, a real estate attorney. The second thing you need is you need a relationship with lenders. You need somebody that, hey, I know that if I find a deal, that this person is going to back me up with my funding. Third person you need is a wholesaler or a realtor that can bring you the deals. Somebody that's going to bring you deals because you can't be online every day, all day trying to find deals, right? Fourth thing you need is a general contractor, somebody you trust that knows the business, somebody that knows, how to walk through a property and that can give you their honest opinion on what needs to be done for that property. Fifth thing you need is a title company, a reliable title company. Now, some states don't require title companies. Some states just require just for you to have either a real estate lawyer or an abstract attorney, right? So if your state doesn't require a title company, your real estate lawyer should be able to handle those documents. But for me in my state, I have a lawyer and I have a reliable abstract company. Some people might ask, what's an abstract company? This is the company that you need to be at when you're doing a real estate transaction. Do not do real estate transactions off the cuff. Don't just say, hey, Johnny Joe sent me a contract. I signed it. I wired him $20,000. Oh, I'm buying this property tomorrow. You get there, it's not a property, it's a lot. Because you didn't have the abstract company that did a title search, right? So we got the lawyer, we have the GC contractor, we have the bank, we have the realtor or wholesaler, we have the abstract company, and my number one person on your team, you need a mentor. You need somebody that's doing what you're trying to do. Because if you're trying to do this by flying off the cuff or shooting from the hip, yes, you can do it. I'm not saying you can't. You can YouTube it to death. You can podcast it to death. You can read all these books. You can do it. But the one thing I tell people when it comes to real estate, you're either going to pay to do real estate or you're going to pay to learn real estate. Some way or somehow you're going to pay. You're going to have to pay. So for me, I had a mentor, but I had it late in my season. I lost a lot of money, a lot of money. If I had that person on my team, I would have saved a lot of money. I would have saved a lot of money. So that's probably like my top 6 that I can think right off the top of my head, the people that you need. And it's very, very important that you need these people. Do not try to do real estate by yourself. Do not try to do real estate by yourself. Always build this particular team up. And I'm not saying that you can't start until you build the team, but as you're building up, make sure you put people in place. The number one person I named first was the attorney. Get your attorney in place, because your attorney is going to protect you when you're building your team with everybody else. So make sure you get your attorney in place, but do not try to do this by yourself. I promise you. I know it sounds like, oh, it doesn't sound too complicated. I'm sure I can get this done. Yes, but when them litigations come in, when that paperwork come in and something happens that you don't have any control over, you're going to spend more money for somebody to untangle what you did when you can just come out the gate and do it the proper way.
Now, how do you evaluate people? So everybody and their mama gonna tell you they are a pro. They know how they do this, and that. They've made so much money.
Yeah.
It's no real way, unless I say, let me see your taxes, to know you've actually made that money.
Mhm.
How do you know someone who's saying, yes, I specialize in this, or yes, I do X? How do you verify? Where do you get the receipts?
Trust but verify, right? So one of my systems is this. When I'm talking to a contractor, let's say I want to verify a contractor. I go meet a contractor and say, hey, I got a project. What do you do? I do everything. Red flag. Red flag. The first person that say that they do everything is a red flag, because I don't want, if you do everything, I don't want you on my team, because that means that you don't specialize in anything, right? Jack of all trades, master of none. So that means that you're just all over the place. So my next question to them is, okay, you do everything. That's great. I'm proud of you. But what do you specialize in? What are you passionate about? What do you wake up every day and say, I can do this one thing for the rest of my life? Oh, sheetrock. Then that's what you do. You're the guy to do sheetrock, right? So I want to hire you for what your passion is, because now if you're passionate about what you do, that means that you're going to give me the best results. Nobody can do everything. Nobody. So when people answer like that, oh, I do everything, red flag to me. When I'm looking for somebody to learn from, right? When it comes to like education and learning from a mentor, people say, oh, I've been doing real estate for 33 years and I do this, and this. What are you doing today? Like, what are you doing today? Can I pull up? Can I meet you tomorrow at your property and we walk it out? And they be like, oh no, I'm not in the field anymore. Red flag. Red flag. If your coach, leader, or mentor is not doing what they're trying to teach you, then that's not the person you want. I'm not saying that they can't teach you, and I'm not saying that they don't have the information, but I want somebody that if I say, hey, I'm in your town, I'm in your city, where are you? If you're not in the property and you behind this computer, you're not doing real estate, you're doing intellectual real estate. I want to learn from somebody that's hands-on doing real estate. So when you're looking for that real estate coach, or you're looking for, they don't even have to be real estate, whatever you're looking for to learn from, the first thing I always ask is, what are you doing today? Like, what did you do yesterday? What's on your itinerary for tomorrow? And if those things don't relate to what I'm trying to learn, you're not the person for me. You're not the person for me, because I'm not looking to, I don't want to learn what you did 15 years ago. I want to know, what are you doing today? So when people call me, they say, hey, coach, I'm interested in joining your program. Where do I start? I tell them, pull up. I'm in properties every day. Pull up. Let's have a conversation so you can see what I'm doing. I want to talk to you while I'm in the field, because I'm active. I'm hands-on. So if you want to learn from somebody that's not hands-on, I'm not your guy. I'm not your guy. If you want me to read to you and you want me to send you, recorded videos so you can watch and learn on your own, I'm not your guy. I'm the guy to say, put your Timberland boots on and we going inside of this property. I'm going to show you what I'm doing hands-on, because the more you see that what I'm doing, and I'm telling you, hey, grab that shovel. Hey, grab that piece of sheetrock. This is the reason why I'm doing this. Hey, we going to Home Depot, right? I'm showing you hands-on. That's the coach you want. You want somebody that's active inside of the field. You don't want anybody that's oh, I used to do this, but now I'm focusing on teaching. No such thing. There's no such thing, right? This is one of the reasons why people think college is a scam. Because how can a college professor treat you or show you how to run your business when they don't own businesses? So
Mm.
yeah, they can read a book and tell you what they're reading in the book, but reading in that book can be edition 15. That means that might be like 30, 40 years old. What we do in business today is not the same thing that we're reading yesterday. So when somebody's trying to teach you something that's pre-recorded, or somebody's trying to teach you something that's already archived, I would be very leery for that. So always ask, what do you do? What do you specialize in? And what are you currently doing today? Are you doing real estate today? Oh, no, you're not. Let me find somebody that's doing real estate today.
Today.
That's how you weave out the people from, we have a lot of online educators because of COVID. And my hat off to all the people who teach people online. I love it. But at the end of the day, you can't learn real estate from a computer. You at some point you got to get in that field. You got to get from behind the computer and say, hey, let me go out to the field and let me go to the abstract company. Let me go talk to an accountant. Let me go talk to a lawyer. Let me see what's going on out here, because you just can't learn it from a computer. It's not possible.
Now, you have been in real estate for 3 decades. So
Yeah.
that's a lot of time, a lot of changes. And you
Yeah.
even mentioned, someone who said, oh, I used to, and now I just teach. And
Yeah.
every industry, laws change, tax laws change.
Yeah.
What changes have you seen in the industry of real estate over your time being a real estate investor?
So what I seen change in real estate was people that are investors or would like to be investors don't learn how to pivot. And what I mean by that is that when I first started in real estate, I couldn't afford an AB area of a rental, or I couldn't afford an AB area of a flip. So what happens is that we try to get into real estate at a very low entry rate, right? So my very first property was for $5,000, right? So if I continued to keep that mind frame and stay in that particular area, yes, after about 10 years, I probably would have, got the gentrification of that particular property. But I had to learn that from 1991 to 2006, I was living a dream in real estate. 2007, the real estate bubble popped. And the reason why the bubble popped from 2007, 8 to a little bit of 2009, everybody blames, the market crashed. That's not what happened. What happened in real estate is that lenders started lending out money, which was called balloon payments. They introduced this thing called balloon payments. What the lenders did was they realized that the average homeowner will stay in a home between 5 to 10 years max. Most homeowners don't stay after 10 years. Now, grandma, when they bought the properties for,
They go die in that
and a handshake, yes, they stayed in the properties for a longer time, because once we got the property, that's all we had, right? But when you got into the 2007, 8, 9, you had a boom of buyers who they had good jobs, right? Because the job rates were good, but the lenders were allowing you to buy properties with something called an interest-only payment for a 5 to 10 year balloon. After that 5 or 10 year balloon, the lender automatically thought that you would sell this property before the balloon payment came. So now when the balloon payment was coming, people wasn't selling the properties. So they couldn't afford the balloon payment. So what did they do? They walked away from the deals. So now we had properties that people just packed up and just left. They just packed up. They didn't care. They packed up and left the properties. So now all these mortgage companies started taking a hit. And that's because they allowed the buyers to, one, bid over top of the appraisal price. If the appraisal was $300,000, they was lending you money for $315,000 to give you the buying power to buy that property. You bought the property, interest only. It lowered your monthly expenses. Then you had that 5 or 10 year balloon you had to pay. If you didn't pay the balloon, they foreclosed. This is the reason why the 2007 and 8 market crashed. Too many people that stopped paying because they couldn't afford it. Now, what I would have done differently is, one, they wasn't giving people like me those type of balloon payments. So we were in the entry lower level where, we had to scrape our money together and get the lower properties. I feel like if people take that entry level and you start building, and after you start building, you have to pivot, right? So I started off in one neighborhood. Then I started, selling properties, renting them out. Then I started moving my portfolio. I sold those. I moved my portfolio to another neighborhood. And then I started renting them, selling them. Then I moved my portfolio to another neighborhood. So the name of the game was, you want to pivot to the right proportion of your portfolio where now you feel comfortable to sell properties and be a landlord. Like, I wouldn't want my child to be, in a rough neighborhood to go collect rent, or I wouldn't want my child to be dealing with, a challenging tenant, when I knew better that once I started accumulating more money, that now I need to pivot. And a lot of people get stuck. They don't know about the pivot. So they get started in real estate, like, oh, I got to stay here forever. Then you get say, I don't want to go into a bad neighborhood and collect rent. I don't want to hear all the problems that the tenants are calling me, telling me that the washer and dryer is broke, or they having issues with the neighbors and screaming and yelling. That's because you bought real estate, but you didn't have a plan. You bought real estate because somebody told you that you can cash flow $300-400 off of this one property, and that sounded attractive to you. But my belief is, I don't believe in today's money. I believe in forever money. And in order to get forever money, you got to pivot. You got to pivot. Money is called currency for a reason. It has to circulate. So if your money's not circulating, you're dormant. And what happens with dormant paper with ink on it? It becomes moldy, right? So that means that you're not growing your money. You're not growing your money. So I would say that most people get stuck because they don't pivot. And what I've learned from my first property in 1991 to my 80th property in 2004, that if you don't learn how to pivot, you're going to have challenges in real estate. You got to pivot. You got to pivot.
I think that's a really good concept. And you touched on one thing in terms of tenants, and somebody just dropped this question or comment in the chat. And I think this is probably one of the big reasons why people are like, I don't know if I want to get into real estate, because anybody who's ever done any real estate, you got some horror stories about tenants. And so it says, it seems as if it's hard to find good renters or tenants. One, is that true? And then two, how do you actually find good tenants?
So the first answer to the first question, is it true? No. It's absolutely not true finding great tenants. Now, how do you find them? So this goes back to having the right person to coach, train, and redirect you. See, we all got in our minds that, the rent is $1,000 a month. If I don't put the right person inside of there, I'm going to have issues. We are still chasing the bag. You got to stop chasing the money. You got to stop looking for today's money, right? How I find my tenants, one, I'm okay with my apartment building being vacant for about 6-7 months. I'm okay with that because I'm not looking to move fast. I'm looking to move correct. So what I've learned in 33 years of real estate is that the tenant only does what you allow them to do. And here's what I mean by that. If you're not doing your background checks, if you're not screening your tenants or find out what your avatar is for your tenant, you're just putting anybody in there. And the reason why is because you're like, oh, my apartment is done. I need to collect money. So your mind is already, you're stuck on the money portion. My mind is stuck on, how can I place somebody who's going to at least be there for 3 to 4 years? Because the average person that rents an apartment, if it's a 1-bedroom apartment or even a 2-bedroom apartment, the average person stays 2 years max. Average. If you got a 3-bedroom house, the average person stays about 5 years max. And the reason being is because a house you're growing into, an apartment you grow out of. You grow out of. So what's my golden sauce? How do I get the right tenants? What I realized is, and this is no pun intended to any age group, but what I realized is that younger adults don't like to stay in apartments too long because they're still trying to figure it out, right? They like me. When I was that younger adult, I wanted to get out of my parents' house. I didn't care what the place looked like. I just took it, right? I just took it. No job. I was a college student. I didn't have any job. I was depending on my stipend check to pay to get this building. So I took that concept and said, all right, if I rent to young adults, they're still trying to figure their life out. So that's not my avatar. That's not my client, because I don't want you in and out of my places, right? I need to gravitate to a clientele that's more settled. So my units, I started gravitating to veterans. Veterans. The veterans were in between the ages of 45 to 55 because they're a little bit more settled, right? And I use different strategies. So if I have an apartment building that I'm doing a rehab with, I'm going to rehab it to a 2-bedroom apartment, right? I'm going to go Section 8 in another program called VASH, right? It's a Veteran Housing Association program that combines with Section 8. So if the veteran has a 1-bedroom voucher, and let's say that this 1-bedroom voucher in my area is $1,500 for an apartment for a 1-bedroom. It's $1,767 for a 2-bedroom. So what I do is I cater to veterans, because when a veteran gets inside, most veterans are single. And even if they are married or have a child, once they move somewhere comfortable, and I do provide luxury rentals, like my rentals are top of the line, they're not going nowhere. Sad to say, my tenants don't move. They pass away. And I'll take that all day. So you got to figure out who your avatar is and who you want to work with. So I get the veterans in. They come in. I think the least amount of time that I've had a veteran in one of my places is 3 years. Everybody is 5 years plus right now. So when people were rushing to put any type of tenant inside of their units, they're going back and forth every year, the tenant moves out, the tenant don't like this. I take my time. I'm screening the tenant. I'm doing a background check. I'm going to a veteran housing association, right, to say, hey, listen, I got some new units coming up. Do you have any veterans that's looking for housing? They getting care services from the vet. They get their veteran check. They get their veteran medical. I'm providing the nice facility. Where they going? They're not going nowhere. They 45 plus. They're not trying to be packing up and moving. And
ain't nobody moving for a 6-pack and a pizza no more.
Nobody, right? So you have to pick your tenant avatar. For me, I like veterans and I like Section 8. For some other people, they say, hey, you know what? I want to be in inner city. I want to get the younger adults. That's fine. But younger adults they're grooming. So if they rent your place, trust me, believe me not, they only going to stay no more. They only going to stay a year to 2 years because they're growing too. They don't want to stay in an apartment forever. So eventually they're going to want to move around. They might, find their soulmate. They might move from one city to another city, right? I want somebody that's settled. When you pick that settled tenant, you have a longer time frame of that person staying inside of your apartment or your house. You got to be very, very selective. Take your time. Treat people the way you want them to treat you, and just flat out tell them, listen, this is my rules and regulations. I'm gonna do my background check. If I provide you with comfortable luxury housing, do you feel like this is something you want to somewhere you want to stay, or is this just a stepping stone for you? Ask the question. Hey, what's your next 2-year plans? We don't ask the right questions sometimes. We might say, oh, the one question we want to know is, do you work? How much money you bring in? Yeah, that's important. But what about the other questions? Like, how do you like this neighborhood? Because they might say, I really don't like the neighborhood. It's okay for now. Oh, that's a red flag to me. Because if this only okay for now, I'd rather you be somewhere where you're comfortable. So screen your people. Understand who is your avatar. Who is it that you want to cater to? Cater to me, my young adults. I put them in my Airbnbs because they don't want to stay anyway. Right? So they in and out, and I'm comfortable with that. But my long-term properties, veterans. I'm going with veterans, and I'm going with more elder, seasoned individuals who are ready to stay. I cater to them. I send them Christmas gifts. I send them birthday gift cards. Right? They love me. But here's the thing. I'm the maintenance man. I'm not the owner. I work for the company too. I'm the maintenance man. And guess what? The maintenance man is always here. He makes sure this is right. He's sending me gifts, gift baskets. I love my maintenance man. Where they going? They just need somebody they can trust and talk to. That's it. Be the maintenance man or the maintenance person, and you'll keep your tenants.
I love that. Really good advice. That's some good advice, because it's definitely one of those things that, one, I know people who have decided I don't ever want to do real estate again after a tenant horror story. I've definitely heard people that are like, my place has been vacant for a month or two, and they just need somebody. and you don't realize like how much somebody can cost
Yep.
over the long run. And so I think that's really good advice, just to make that avatar. And your avatar might look different depending on where you are.
Absolutely. Mhm.
And I mean, not trying to get a property to fit people. I know sometimes people will say, I was really hoping a place with less stairs. Okay, find your place with less stairs. Or, like,
Yes.
don't say, oh, the stairs aren't that bad. Or, oh,
Mhm.
I know it's a little loud. If
Yep.
they don't like city noises, it ain't gonna get better.
And that's why that key question is so key. How do you like the neighborhood? When people come walk my units, after I interview them, I ask them, "Hey, what do you think about the unit? What do you like and what don't you like?" Because remember, I work for the company. I'm the property manager or I'm the maintenance man. So they're going to feel free to speak freely. Oh, you know what? I really like this, but there's a lot of steps. You know what? I hear that all the time. And guess what? I wouldn't select that person. They're already telling you what the objective is. So my goal is not to defeat the objective. My goal is to have somebody be like, hey, I don't mind the steps. Or I tell them, hey, I think we got another unit that have less steps. Right.
And then
So
pick
I try to accommodate them and put them where they feel comfortable. People will pay where they feel comfortable. If they got to go up and down 15 steps, maybe they don't feel like going to the bank to go get your rent money this month because they don't feel like going up and down those steps. But if you put them somewhere, if you would have listened and put them somewhere where they felt comfortable, they wouldn't mind going to go to the bank and get that rent money because you put them in a comfortable situation. So you have to ask. Sometimes we have to remove ourselves as the person that's in control and ask more questions about how can I accommodate to make your living space here more comfortable. If this is not for you, it's not for you. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. And that's how you build a relationship with the landlord and tenant.
We got somebody, she says she has a condo downtown Detroit and it's loud in the summer and it's in a lively area. And I mean, you might get someone, I mean, it could be a young couple that says we don't own a car and we want to be able to walk to bars and restaurants. That's
Yep,
different than the person who says, I want a nice, calm, quiet neighborhood
exactly.
every summer. They're gonna be like,
Downtown,
we better move before summer hit. Before it's loud.
downtown. If that was my situation where I'm downtown, it's restaurants and it's loud. My go-to is I'm going to Airbnb it or I'm going to look for college students. I'm gonna rent the college students because that's what they want. That's what they like that noise. They like the back and forth, the energy, right? So
They
I'm
ain't
gonna rent
coming home to the noise stop anyway.
exactly.
They out to the bar.
They probably didn't make the noise. Absolutely.
And so definitely if you got any other questions, be sure to drop those into the chat. A lot of good information in terms of how to get started, about, the avatar. And I think that's something that most people, you sit out and you do your numbers. People teach you how to do, how do you know this is a good buy? How do you know how to price your rental? But
Yeah,
oh my gosh, I mean, the avatar for your ideal tenant, it allows you to know where are you promoting, and
absolutely.
who are you reaching out to, how do you phrase things in your description.
Yep.
But also I'm quite sure a lot of people are like, all right, Calvin, you talk that talk, we trying to pull up. So how do they get in contact with you? How they gonna pull up and see what you doing? They got
Yeah,
their Timbs in the back seat, like they coming over. What?
absolutely. So I mean, everybody always can find me on all social media platforms, Calvin Cannon Jr. I'm located in Philadelphia, PA. You got family members here, or you travel to Philadelphia, you can always shoot me a DM like, Coach, look, I'm in your area. I hear you talking that talk, and I want to see. Pull up. Listen, if you go to my Instagram right now, Calvin Cannon Jr., you'll see every day I'm in the properties. I walk the walk, I talk the talk because I'm in there every day doing it. So yeah, that's where you can find me at. Absolutely.
And you also have a coaching community where you're working with people if they're either just getting started, they're trying to expand, they're trying to get to the next point. Maybe they're trying to figure out if this is even what they want to do. What does the community look like? What
Yep.
is that experience for people?
Mhm.
How do they engage and be a part of that community?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I used to do the big, huge mentorships, right? I used to do them like every 90 days. But what I realized is that some people don't learn on the same pace as others. So with my community, we meet the first Wednesday of every month, And we basically go over all the real estate processes from the beginning to the end, the things that I'm currently doing. We go over deals. I'm putting deals out there. We talk about different lenders. We're talking about what's happening in real estate every day. Inside of my community it is a no judgment zone. I have lawyers in there. I have doctors, teachers in there. I got people who have 50 properties. I got people in there that got 120 properties. So everybody's on different levels. But what makes my community so unique is that is very intimate. You can ask the questions that you need to ask. I'm doing live tutorials. I'm doing live showings of the things that I'm doing. We're breaking down scope of works. I'm breaking down how to find your tenant, how I talk to the bank, how I'm finding my properties, how I'm putting my contracts together. My attorneys come in. I have realtors coming in. I got wholesalers coming in. I have private lenders coming in. So our community is set up where you can learn real estate and figure out what portion of real estate you want to invest in. See, a lot of times you get in these programs and you're like, I just gave you $20,000. And I'm out of the program and I could have used that $20,000 and got my property. I'm not that guy. I'm the guy that say, hey, our continuity is a monthly fee that you pay. Every month you come in, you ask your questions, you get the information. Once you figure out what is it that you're trying to do, then you book your one-on-one VIP, which may be a little bit more expensive. However, now you know what you want to do. You know the direction you want to go into. So now I can help you with your goals to reach your direction. When you join these big mentorships and you have no idea where you're going, you're spending a lot of money. So figure out what you need, join a community, ask questions, look at examples, and then you're able to say, hey, I want to do wholesaling, or no, I want to do flips, or no, I want to buy, flip, hold until my cash flow supersede my flips. And that's how you get started in real estate. And that's what my community is about. My community is about teaching you, grooming you, so you can learn to get to the next level.
I love it. Now, if somebody's looking for your community, where can they find it?
So, yep. So you would have to go to my social media page at Calvin Cannon Jr. Just jump in my DM. Just type the word join, JOIN. You'll get a link. Pop up, click the link. You can read all the descriptions. You sign up. Boom, you're inside of the community. The other thing that I promote a lot is consultation calls. If you want to book a private consultation call with me, you can. Same thing. You can go to my DM, type the word call, and then my link will come up for you to book the call. Yes, the calls are not free. I don't want anybody, I thought you said the call. The calls are not free. You got to pay for the call. But here's the thing. The call is always scheduled for like 30 to 45 minutes. I don't rush nobody off the phone. If once you got me for that hour and a half, get all your questions together. I tell people, have your plan together, have your questions, book your call, whether if you need a Zoom call, whether if you would just need a regular phone call, and I'm going to give you what you need. I'm going to make sure you get the value so you can make a promising decision to get started in real estate. So you can join the community or you can do our consultation calls. That's the two things that we do.
And I dropped the social media handle in the chat as well. So be sure to click that, hit them up on all the social medias, because it's so much information. I mean, you've given us so much in just an hour. It's like, you got your people on your team, you got your avatar, you got all the different ways that you can invest. It's so much under that real estate umbrella. And so I'm quite sure somebody put it on their vision board. They were like, I'm going to be a real estate investor. I'm going to generate some additional cash, whatever it is. And here you are, you have that resource. It's totally available to you. So I want to thank you for joining. I wrote down some notes and stuff. I'm like,
absolutely. Thank you. Appreciate the
time. And so if you are interested, be sure to hit him up, go follow him as well, book your call, join the community. And I want to thank you, Calvin, for joining us tonight. And thank you for all of your insight.
I thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And until next time, everybody have a good night.
Let's go.